After a successful return for rallying at Donington Park last year, the teams would return once again for the Imperial Commercials Volkswagen Donington Rally. On to the first of the day's stages then, and it would be the lead for Paul and Jessica Swift. They took an early advantage of 18 seconds in that escort. Swift's closest competition coming from Alan Kirkcaldy and Gary Muir, the pair reigniting their Croft battle from earlier in the year in the Motorsport News Championship. The gaps at the top would be opening up a little, with Gary and Gordon Adam taking third place at this stage, a further 30 seconds back from Kirkcaldy ahead. It will be fourth overall at the minute for Graham Bell and Russ Radford. It will be a strong start, but another 6 seconds back to Ian Woodhouse and Paul Rowland in fifth place on our leaderboard, fourth in Class 4. And Paul Diamond and Steve Cox lie just behind them on the results overall and in the class, 2 seconds of a difference back to themselves in sixth place. For John Marshall and Scott Crawford, it was just another second back to 7th place. It's probably fair to say it wasn't the start that Andy Fraser and Michael Calvert would have wanted. 8th place overall, 6th in the class, a minute off the lead at this stage. Martin Stockdale and Nick Taylor bring the BMW out and lie in 9th place at this stage, just 2 seconds back from Fraser in the Darien. And rounding out our top 10 were Pete Smith and Steve McNulty. Just looking outside of the top 10, and it will be the lead in Class 3 for Roger and Sam Cox. But that was only down to their Stage 1 time. They would, in fact, be level on overall times with Paul Alexander and Abby Haycock. Second in the class and 12th overall, things wouldn't be quite as close in Class 2. John Marshall and Chris Patterson lead the way there with a 32-second advantage. Meanwhile, Andrew Saunders and Steve Griffin have a good run in Class 1, taking the lead. This class was being decided on Stage 1 times 2. Saunders having to share that overall time with Jonathan Hudson and A.D. Collins. Michael Boynes and Stuart Gilks, meanwhile, had a little way to go to catch John Marshall in their class. Russell Ballow and Rob Ginn take the early lead in Class 0, a big advantage in that class that was unlikely to change. That advantage, though, was over Jessica Robinson and Chris Sheridan. Second in the class themselves with a good advantage, just the one car in the H2 class, meaning that it's the class lead, of course, for Harry and Stephen Shepherd. But they do need to get the car to the finish, which is a feat on its own on a rally like this. So with 3 stages complete here at Donington, the top of the overall results looks like this. On to the next few stages and big changes in the results as we lose Paul Swift with a broken axle. Ian Woodhouse and Paul Rowland move right up the results then to take the lead of the rally now. It would also be back to the original plan for Andy Fraser and Michael Calvert. They get themselves back up near where they would want to be. Second place for now, but still with 25 seconds to make up to that lead. No change in third place for Gary and Gordon Adam. They continue to hold that final step on the podium, closing the gap on the lead now. And Paul Diamond and Steve Cox gain some time in these stages to move their way up to 4th place now, also gaining a place in the class with the loss of Swift. Paul Alexander and Abby Haycock take the Class 3 lead in these stages, moving the right way on the overall results too, now lying in a much more positive 5th place. John Marshall and Scott Crawford meanwhile step up to take the Class 5 lead. The new car going well and the times improving as the day went on. We'd see a small improvement too for Martin Stockdale and Nick Taylor as they move up a couple of places to 7th overall now. Pete Smith and Steve McNulty gain a couple of places to take up 8th place on the leaderboard. Roger and Sam Cox make a move into our top 10 now, 9th overall to be exact, the pair slipping down to 2nd in Class 3 though at this stage. And rounding out the top 10 now was Simon Belcher and Sam Bailey, rounding out the top of the results and lying 3rd in Class 5. Taking a look at the classes, it will be the lead for John Marshall and Chris Patterson in Class 2, a lead that they would have over Michael Boynes and Stuart Gilks. Second in the class in the rather more unusual Citroen. In Class 1, Jonathan Hudson and A.D. Collins have a small advantage of 22 seconds, lying in 22nd on the overall leaderboard too. Their advantage would be over David McMullen and Mark Melhush, second in the class and a few places back overall in 26th. Russell Ballow and Rob Ginn extend the lead further in Class 0 now, looking set to take that class victory, with Jessica Robinson and Chris Sheridan gaining more of an advantage in their second place themselves as the day went on. So with just 2 more stages to go, the results at the top look like this. On to the final stages then, and it will be 56th overall for Jessica Robinson and Chris Sheridan, taking that second in Class 0 with it. And taking the victory in that class after leading the way all day, Russell Ballow and Rob Ginn. Class 0 win, 53rd overall. A last-minute step up into the results to take second in Class 1 for Andrew Saunders and Steve Griffin. They also take 32nd on the leaderboard. But the victory in that class goes to Jonathan Hudson and Adi Collins, taking the class win by just over a minute. No change in Class 2 as Michael Boynes and Stuart Giltz finished the event with second in the class. And the Class 2 victory would go to event-long leaders John Marshall and Chris Patterson, taking a healthy 16th on the leaderboard as well. On to our top 10 now, and there will be some changes, but not for Simon Belcher and Sam Bailey as they continue to round out the top 10 with third in Class 5. No change either for Roger and Sam Cox. 9th place for them and second in Class 3 at the end of the rally. For Martin Stockdale and Nick Taylor in the BMW, it will be an 8th place finish, as well as taking 5th place in Class 4. And just ahead of them in the class and overall results were Pete Smith and Steve McNulty. 7th place, a good finish for the pair in the Metro. John Marshall and Scott Crawford have a good run in the Impreza to take the Class 5 victory. Paul Alexander and Abby Haycock, meanwhile, in the Mark II, have a good run through the afternoon stages, taking 5th place overall and taking that Class 3 victory crucially. No change in the results though for Paul Diamond and Steve Cox. They end the event with 4th on the leaderboard and in Class 4 too. Sadly for Andy Fraser and Michael Calvert, it will be a drop down to 3rd overall. A good run still and a nice finish under their belts. That means that at the end of the event, it's a step in the right direction for Gary and Gordon Adam, runner-up this weekend overall and in the class. But taking the overall rally win this weekend were Ian Woodhouse and Paul Rowland. A good result for the pair, finishing with a 36-second advantage by the end of the rally. So with the Donington stages complete, here's a reminder of the overall results. The start of the BTRDA season also meant the start of the highly anticipated new 2016 Fiesta ST Trophy. Fastest through the morning stages would be Owen Rowlands and Tom Jordan. Owen on only his second rally, the Cambrian last year being his first event. It was a good start for Sam Billam and Richard Crozier. They end the morning with second place, having to get used to a change in car and a change to the wrong side of the car for both of them this weekend, a switch to left-hand drive. And it will be a further 25 seconds back to John Ambler and Doug Chivers. The battle in the middle of the results was close, even if Rowlands was getting himself a good advantage out in front. Meanwhile, for Tom Eason and Mike Reynolds, it would be another 37 seconds back in 4th, but they did have a good advantage in that position themselves. Frustratingly for George Lepley and Arwell Jenkins, the end of stage 3 is as far as they would go. They retire with gearbox problems. So midway through the first event for the Fiesta ST Trophy, and this is how the times were looking. On to the second half of the day, and sadly for Sam Billam and Richard Crozier, there would be some problems in the afternoon, meaning it's 3rd place for the pair at the end of the rally. And for Tom Eason and Mike Reynolds, it would be 2nd. A good finish to start the season off well here in Llandudno. Owen Rowlands and Tom Jordan then would take victory here at round 1. Gearbox problems would provide a scare midway through the afternoon though. So at the end of the event, the results in the Fiesta ST Trophy looked like this.
Yeah, it's been a very good day with the new Fiesta Trophy with John and Ian Arden here. They've put together this really brilliant championship and happy to be involved in it and a part of it. Yeah, been a good run on the Cambrian.
The Bovington stages mark the start of the new RAC Historic Asphalt Rally Championship, a dedicated asphalt championship for all categories of historic cars aimed at those who prefer to compete on a sealed surface. An encouraging entry to the opening round would sadly be reduced early on with a number of retirements, the first of which being Grant Shand and Jez Rogers retiring on only the second stage with fuel pump problems and no replacement with them to change it. Barry Stevenson Wheeler and John Pickavents also encounter problems, this time of their own doing. They hit a chicane, but they would rebuild the car and compete on the Trophy Valley on day 2. Day 1 would also claim early leaders Ian Pritchard and Steve McPhee, a misfire in the Escort causing them to call it a day. So that would mean that Lee and Chris Armstrong take the lead going into day 2. They have a good lead of almost 45 seconds at the end of day 1. Roger Moran and Ashley Trimble were having a good run in the newly built car, settling in at a steady pace over the opening day to lie second. Roger Matthews and Tom Marrett led the way in Category 2 over the early stages and keep hold of that lead to the end of the day, even though the car was geared too slow for the fast venue. And in Category 1 it would be Bob Seeger and Simon Hannum in the MG Midget that end the day with that class and in 4th place. So with half of the rally to go, the results at the opening round of the championship look like this. Sadly, day 2 would see the lead change as Lee and Chris Armstrong failed to continue, a suspected head gasket failure sidelining the pair. Meanwhile, Roger Moran and Ashley Trimble had been consistent, a long event needing a steady run in order to get to the end, and they take the lead and eventually the win at the end of the event. In second place overall and first in Category 2 were Roger Matthews and Tom Marrett. They will be looking at gearing the car differently for next year's event, but this weekend's results was a good one. And for Bob Seeger and Simon Hannum in the MG, it would be the Category 1 win, feeling the running out of speed on the fast and flowing stages. So at the end of the event, the top of the categories looked like this. As well as the RAC Historic Championship, the event would also host a well-represented modern rally, with everything right up to World Rally cars. Over the first of the stages, it would be a lead for Steve and Yvonne Fursland. The pair get to the end of the first day's rallying with a 39-second advantage in that place. Andy Vey and Richard Fletcher would be their closest rivals at the end of the day, second place in the class and overall for the pair, but they didn't have as much of a comfy margin in that place. They would only have 7 seconds of an advantage over Kevin Tappin and Jamie Vaughan. They lie in third, but with a good lead in Class 6. They wouldn't have any advantage though, with Gary Lequadju and Carl Sorensen ending the day on an identical time to the Escort pair and lying fourth now, third in the class. Jeffrey Bennett and John Billett have a good lead in Class D, well above the others in the class and up as high as 5th place overall, although there would be 46 seconds to the top crews ahead. It was close in the rest of the places though, with James and Ben Harvey taking 6th place now, just 2 seconds back from Bennett ahead. And for Tim and James Self, it would just be 1 second further back, the Subaru pair in 7th overall. With Kevin Tappin leading the way in Class C, it would be Daryl Morris and Steve Gully who take up 2nd in the class at this stage, 8th overall. And they would have a 30-second advantage over Ben Parker and Alv Chanter, who lie 3rd in the class at this stage and 9th place overall. And rounding out the top 10 were Jim Munden and Danny Hutchins, 14 seconds back from Parker ahead. In some of the classes outside the top 10, it would be 2nd place in Class D for James and Mark Russell, lying in 14th overall. Andrew Vickery and Thomas Todd have a good run on day 1 to lead Class B by almost a minute, 16th overall too for the pair. And Julian Wilkes and Bob Rutherford also have a good run in their class, leading the way in Class A and lying in 17th overall. Mark and Nick Clayton would be the closest rivals for the top of Class B. They lie 2nd in the class and 20th overall. And they would have 22 seconds of an advantage over John Aldreeve and Nigel Hewitt, who take up 3rd in the class at this stage in the event. Sam Perring and Amy Fergus round out the podium places in Class D at this stage, 3rd in the class and 31st overall in the BMW. And with Julian Wilkes way out ahead in the Class A fight, it would be David and James Cooper that take up second in that class and 46th overall, with Edward Lambert and Gareth Drayton lying a few places back overall in 50th and 3rd in the class. So at the end of the first day's rallying, the results at the top look like this. On to day 2 and the final results, and we see plenty of change right through the leaderboards as Ian Woolacott and Duncan Freeman round out the podium places in Class A with 43rd overall. Change also with second in the class as Matt Cahill and Lee Parkinson now take that place to the end of the event with a 40th overall finish. And for Edward Lambert and Gareth Drayton, it would be the Class A win, certainly unexpected at the end of day 1, but a welcomed class victory. The top of the Class D results would be a little closer, with James and Mark Russell ending the event with 3rd in the class and 30th overall. They would finish the event just 31 seconds behind Tim Elderson and Pete Villas. They take 2nd in the class and 29th overall in the BMW. But taking the Class D win and by a small 18-second advantage were Kevin Rolt and Lee Dare, a good result for the pair, taking 29th overall too. A little further up the results, it would be 19th overall for Robert and Jenny Blake. They end the event with the final podium place in Class B. John Aldreve and Nigel Hewitt finish a few places further up overall, but only 1 place in the class, second in Class B for the pair and ending the event with 15th overall. And a similar story for Mark and Nick Clayton, taking the Class B win by a slim 12 seconds at the end of 2 days of rallying. On to the top 10, and it will be 10th place for Ron Allen and Derek LeBailey, taking 4th in Class C in the Escort. And taking the final step on the Class C podium were Ben Parker and Alf Chanter, 9th place overall. Jim Munden and Danny Hutchins gain a few places in the day 2 stages and managed to end the event with an 8th place overall. And the same story for Mark Welsh and Mark Norris, the new car taking some getting used to, but they end the event with 7th overall. Daryl Morris and Steve Gully have a good run to 6th place, and with it they take 2nd in Class C. And for James and Ben Harvey, it would be 5th place overall, just outside the top of the Class C results with 4th in the class. But taking the final podium place in that class were Andy Vey and Richard Fletcher, 3rd in the class and just 5 seconds off the podium places they held on day 1. Kevin Tappin and Jamie Vaughan have a good weekend, taking the Class C win and managing to bring the car home on the final step of the podium, just 11 seconds back from 2nd place. And in that 2nd place were Gary Lequadju and Carl Sorensen. They managed to get themselves a little closer to the win, but it just wasn't meant to be this time round. But that means it's the win for Steve and Yvonne Fursland. They take victory by just over a minute. Comfortable, but certainly not a big advantage for 2 full days of rallying. So at the end of the event, here's a reminder of the overall results.
On to the opening stages then, and it will be an early lead for Cameron Davies and Lee Taylor. The pair joining the championship here at round 2, making their mark straight away. Cameron's return to the rally stages from the circuits. Despite minimal experience on the gravel, George Lepley and Arwell Jenkins settle into 2nd place, only 14 seconds back from Davies. Championship leader after round 1, Owen Rowlands, with Emir Hall alongside, would have to settle for 3rd place at this stage. Gearbox problems prior to the event had hindered the preparations. The pair were struggling to get into it on the opening stages of the rally. Tim Kieran Rogers and Abby Haycock were another new pair joining the series at round 2. Copart Fiesta Trophy winner on Rally GB, Tim was expected to go well, but handling problems would hamper a real push early on. Problems too for Sam Billam and Richard Crozier as they bend a wheel in the morning stages, meaning they lie around a minute back from Rogers ahead. John Ambler and Felix Wiseman have a steady start, looking for a finish after the retirement on the opening round, 6th place for now. And problems for Tom Eason and Graham Wild as they go off, damaging the car and ending the morning with 7th place on the leaderboard. So after the first of the day's stages, it would be the lead for Cameron Davies, but he wasn't having it all his own way. Over the next couple of stages, there wouldn't be any change in the lead. Cameron Davies and Lee Taylor still taking that advantage, 23 seconds as well now. No problems for George Lepley and Arwell Jenkins. They remain in a strong 2nd place, The gap to the lead was a little bigger, but they were keeping them within their sights. It's a move into third now for Tim Kirvan-Rogers and Abby Haycock. They move up to that position in the Grisdale stages of the event. 1 minute back from Lepley now. And Sam Billum and Richard Crozier try to salvage something back from their earlier problems. They lie in fourth place now and themselves just over a minute back from Rogers. The reason for some of the change in the results will be problems for Owen Rowlands and Emir Hall. Things were going well until the pair put the car on its side in Grisdale, losing some valuable time. They do though continue and lie in fifth place. And John Ambler and Felix Wiseman would round out the results in sixth place at this stage after the loss of Tom Eason, who rolls out of the rally on stage 5. So with just 2 more stages to go, here at the home of the Fiesta ST Rally Car, of course, Cumbria, home of M Sport, the results in the Fiesta ST Trophy look like this. On to the final results then, and it would sadly be the end of the road for Owen Rowlands and Emir Hall. The wheels literally falling off their championship lead in the final stage of the rally. For John Ambler and Felix Wiseman, it will be a 5th place finish. A steady run to get to the end and score some valuable points after that round 1 non-finish. Sam Billum and Richard Crozier meanwhile end the rally with 4th. It was a good move to keep going as well, as the points now mean that they lead the championship points after round 2. Tim Kirvan-Rogers and Abby Haycock have a good run to end the rally with the final step on the podium. Happy with how things had gone despite some handling issues early on in the day. George Lepley and Harwell Jenkins put up a good fight, but for this round it would have to be second. They end the rally just 21 seconds off victory. But that does mean it's a great return for Cameron Davies and Lee Taylor. They take victory on what hadn't been an easy day for the pair. They were pushed hard, and it was looking good for a close battle throughout the season now. So before we chat to our winner, here's a reminder of those final results.
He's back.
Yeah, it feels great to be back as well. I mean, I've just loved today. Really enjoyed. The result we've had is phenomenal, really, because last night the car was in no state to really get to the end, so really happy.
So what happened was you went circuit race and you thought, not nearly enough excitement there, I'm going back in the forests.
Yeah, I know, I had to have a few Scandi flicks in my life. It's just, no, I missed it. My heart's in rallying, so this is where I got to be. Yeah, and I'm really surprised that I could get back into it this quickly. I mean, I thought Ramley Round would sort of put me on a back step, so no.
We're not that surprised. Well done.
Thank you.
Well, Cameron Davies is back, and is he back? George Lepley, surely a talent to be watched as well on those stages. And great to have Tim Rogers in the mix as well today. This Fiesta ST Trophy looks like being a great watch during the rest of the BTRDA season. Make sure you catch the next round. We'll be there. You can catch all the action on Special Stage.
Two-length push on the